The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
I'm horror author T. Fox Dunham.
And I'm horror author and filmmaker Phil Thomas.
And tonight we're asking you,
what are you afraid of?
Amazing Doug. There he is.
Good evening.
Yeah. Okay. We are live. Yeah. Some issues with the OBS studio broadcasting our sound over Facebook. I don't know what happened, but I'll figure it out. And hopefully either tonight or next time, our Facebook viewers will be able to hear the live content, like a story and a song and the themes between. Mm-hmm. If not, you can just enjoy us talking. I don't know what happened with it, but we'll get it worked out. Yeah. We'll get it sorted out.
Yeah, we always do.
Yeah, we do. We'll get there. I mean, it's a process. Mm-hmm. It really is. But we're on Para X Radio live now at 6 o'clock. You know, for anybody on Para X Radio, and you can listen to our content over there on Para X Radio, www.paraxradio.com, obviously. And we are also on Facebook tonight. And we are live at Comic Zen.
That's right.
In Lansdale. Yeah, we are back. And it's a tree lighting ceremony.
This technically isn't First Friday, though, right? This is just the tree lighting ceremony. Correct?
Yeah, technically, yeah. Again, I apologize that we're having some issues with the OBS. It worked when we were at King of Prussia. I guess I'm just encoding it wrong. I wish I had a little more time, but we're getting there.
Yes.
So we are here tonight with a special guest.
Oh, wait, that's my intro. Hi! Hello!
And then you're like, who's a special guest? Oh, wait, me.
Exactly. Hi, everyone. For those who do not know me, my name is Doug Stafford. I am the Bad Idea of Bad Idea Entertainment. Just recently returned from the Maryland Renaissance Festival, among other wonderful events.
Right.
Nice. How was that?
It's horrible when you're talking in a horribly fake English accent that actual English people find offensive.
I can't stand it. I said that we were at Penhurst. It's like, I mean, I had a bit of an accent growing up, and a lot of it's gone away now, and it has to come out a little bit, but, you know, being where I come from, but it was like, oh, that drives me crazy.
No, it's the first thing that I say during my show. I say, lords and ladies, welcome to the Renaissance Fair. Now that I've completely offended anyone with an English accent, hi.
Has anyone ever called you out?
Having seizure.
Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, flashbacks. Yes, I get called out on that more than I would like to. Wow. But usually people laugh at it because, I mean, we're growing up in the age of Deadpool and fourth wall breaks.
Right.
So someone being honest about it, it's a nice change of pace.
Yeah, exactly.
So we got some friends on Facebook. By the way, this is episode 68. Wendigo. And I got some notes for you. Well, we're gonna jump to an interview real quick so we can get our stuff together. And I need to pump the loo, saying it in British. But we did a great. This is episode 68, Wendigo. Our first of it's December 1st.
Yeah, can you believe it?
It's the first of our winter episodes. Mm-hmm. You know, I love the winter episodes. I mean, because we've got some great stuff, and we get to snuggle up with some ghost stories around the fire with little, eggnog and rum.
I know, and you know what? Sometimes people, they associate ghost stories with Halloween, as they should.
Yeah.
But, Christmas has some great ghost stories.
Yes, it does.
There's a dark side to Christmas.
There very much is. It is the time for ghost stories.
It is.
So definitely check out. We'll be bringing to you those over the next few weeks. We've got some great guests coming on. Doug is here with us tonight, the great magician. The amazing Doug, as I like to say.
But I have to save myself. The people who are currently watching us, they're like, "What's this guy? He's weird and wearing a T-shirt and obviously doesn't fit in. What is so magical about him?" But I know for a fact that we are surrounded by so many people who grew up on Labyrinth and all those wonderful things.
Mm-hmm. Are you also wearing the jumpsuit with the obvious groin?
The jumpsuit with the obvious groin?
Yeah, because he was pretty much rocking that leotard there. And it was a little much for kids.
That's what burlesque is for.
Oh, okay. But, okay, I'm T. Fox Dunham.
I'm Phil Thomas.
And I'm Doug Stafford.
And we are at Comic Zen in Lansdale. All right, everybody. While we sauce out a few technical issues and I pop to the loo, we are going to play you part 2 of an interview that I did with the great author Tim Waggoner. He's an amazing fellow. He's been featured in many horror novels, and he's also done a lot of media tie-in work for places like Supernatural, which I think is really cool. He created pretty much, he didn't create, but he pretty much did Eberron, which is a Dungeons and Dragons thing. He wrote a lot of that. He's been a great friend. He's part of the Horror Writers Association. I met him in Atlanta at the World Horror Con, so that was pretty cool. And I've got part 2 of his interview. It's not very long, but he tells some ghost stories that happened to him, and he talks about a new book out with Crystal Lake Publishing from some of the best horror writers currently writing. So if you bear with me, we will play that interview, we'll get ourselves together, and we're going to have a great show.
Quality warning. This podcast often records in the field to gather the best in paranormal materia from witnesses. Often, we cannot control the quality of sound in this environment, such as you may hear distortions or perhaps the occasional moaning. But then again, we're not about control, are we?
Embrace the chaos.
You're listening to the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network. Yeah, it's a mouthful. For more great shows, visit electronicmediacollective.com.
Mercy, a new horror medical thriller from author T. Fox Dunham, published by Bloodbound Books. Based on the author's horrific battle with a rare form of lymphoma that involved intense chemotherapy and radiation, Fox turns the horror of his experience into terror on the page.
William Saint is dying of cancer. On most days, death seems like a humane alternative to the treatment. Stricken with fever, William is rushed to Mercy, notorious as a place to send the sickest of the poor and uninsured to be forgotten, and finds the hospital in even worse condition than his previous visit.
Willie's memories faded. He grabbed his sack head, the sack head of the scarecrow, picking at the exposed chicken wire to hold them in. However, the memories fell out of the holes in his face. They wormed and crawled from the leather flesh and the old clothing of the scarecrow, then squirmed and wiggled down his body.
The grounds are unkempt, the foundation is cracking, and like the wild mushrooms sprouting from the fissures of decay around it, something is growing inside the hospital. Something dark.
Fangoria gives Mercy 3.5 out of 4 skulls. Dunham has channeled his many brushes with the other side into the exquisitely rendered, lyrical, supernatural hospital thriller Mercy.
It's feeding on the sickness and sustaining itself on the staff, changing them, and now it wants Willie.
Come now, Mr. Saint. Just a little more of that sweet milk. So salty and so good. You won't miss it. And we ever do so like our delicacies here at Mercy Hospital.
Part medical horror, part supernatural suspense, Mercy is a hard-hitting fever dream of a novel. I enjoyed the hell out of it. Tim Waggoner, author of The Way of All Flesh and Eat the Night. Available from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and bookstores everywhere in both print and digital versions.
Life is an addiction.
Let go. Let it all burn.
You said you've had a few spooky experiences in your life.
Now that you mentioned animal guides, I had a dream once that in the dream was a white wolf. And the next night, I was in high school, I think, and I was driving my girlfriend home. She had fallen asleep. She was so sleepy, she was already asleep in the car. And what looked like, it was a white dog thing that it didn't quite look like a wolf, kind of looked like a husky maybe, I wasn't sure, but it was completely white. And it just walked in front of my car and just stopped and looked at me. And I looked at it, and it looked at me, and then it just wandered off. on the other side of the road, and that's when my girlfriend woke up, and she's like, "What happened?" And I had no idea, how to explain it to her. And that was, it may have been a credible coincidence, but it was the another time when it was the experience was like super realistic in the sense that, it wasn't like something that you just felt, where sometimes you'll go into a room maybe and it's super cold suddenly, and you have a sense that something else might be there. This was me actually seeing this. So it was very odd. But that felt more like an Animal Guide type experience. It was not scary at all. It was more like, wondrous to see that.
What you're describing is a common archetype in shamanic experiences known as the shape change moment, where you take the place of the animal and the animal sort of merges with you. And I wonder what medicine brought you when you were younger. Because often younger people have a different spirit guide, and then they work with another one when they get older. So that's very interesting.
So the snake may have been my younger one, and then the wolf might have been my when I was older.
And the wolf came to you when you were becoming an adult, a warrior, and moving into the next parts of your life. Yeah, that's actually sounds like you are in touch with some animal spirit guides in the other world. So very cool. Any other ghost stories that have happened to you?
The absolute most bizarre one, I guess, that ever happened to me, and I have yet to put this in a story because I'm trying to find a way to do it, but when I was very young, I used to have these dreams that I just thought of them as future dreams. I would dream of like about 10 to 20 to 30 seconds, maybe a minute, of just something happening. It would be very mundane, everyday life. And then sometime later, a few weeks, couple months, I would actually find myself experiencing this. Now, when I dreamed it, I would dream it as if I was in my own head experiencing it, like seeing through my eyes, and then it would actually happen. And then about 2/3 of the way through the experience is when I would remember the dream. Eventually, I had this really strange dream where my cat was on the roof of my house, and I think this is around high school again, too, probably, and I'd never seen the cat on the roof of the house, and I was afraid the cat was going to get hurt. It was ridiculous. Cats would be fine, but that's what I was afraid of. So I was trying to think of how to get the cat down, and so in the dream, I'm holding out my arms, and I'm calling for the cat to come down. And the cat's not sure. I can see it kind of edge forward, edge back, and finally it jumps. And as it's coming down to me, I can see it coming right for my face, then everything goes black. Then the cat's back up on the roof. It jumps one more time, and the sequence happens again. It goes black. Then it happens a third time. And the same sequence went black, and then I woke up terrified. And I'd forgotten about the dream. And several weeks or months later, there's my cat on the roof. And in the same position, I'm having all the same thoughts and feelings I had in the dream. I'm worried about the cat. So I'm, beckoning the cat to come down. And the cat is bunching up its legs, and it's getting ready to jump. And that's when I remembered the dream. And I held out my hand, and I yelled, "Stop." And the cat's eyes bugged out, and I had the strangest sensation. It felt like the world tilted 90 degrees and then tilted back. And I looked backwards, from where I was standing, and there was some metal junk that my dad had sitting there. And I was thinking, was that dream telling me I might have fallen backwards into that and got hurt, maybe killed? So then I got smart and got some cat food and put it on the shed next to the house, and the cat jumped out of that. And I was able to get the cat just fine. But after that, my future dreams decreased tremendously. I still occasionally have them. They're not as vivid, and my feelings of here I am living something that I've dreamed about are they're like kind of smoother, softer. It's not as distinct. But I still have them every once in a while. But it was almost as if all those dreams I had as a kid were to help me prepare for that moment so that I would recognize it. And then, of course, it repeated 3 times, so that helped me pay attention to it, that it was, really special. So that's probably the biggest thing, paranormal type experience that I've ever had. Another experience I had was my friends and I were driving, because we lived out, in a small town in the country, and we actually saw, I didn't know what this was at the time, but we saw a woman in white. We, the classic kind of archetype ghost figure. She was standing only like a foot from the road, and just at the side of the road. She was in sort of a white nightgown. She had long black hair. Her skin was whitish, and all of that was odd enough. But it was the absolute nothing on her that responded to us as we went by. I mean, no expression, nothing in her eyes. I don't even think her gown moved in any kind of wind that the car kicked up. And and I had never heard of that archetype until years later. And I did write a short story about that. Showed up in Legends of the Mountain State that Michael Nost edited.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I remember that one a few years ago.
Yeah. And so that was another one that was like super vivid and like super concrete. You know, it wasn't just like a feeling. You know, it was something that I saw, and everybody in the car saw it. It wasn't just me.
Fantastic. I love the classic ghost stories like that. We get a lot of those, a lot of different sightings, and you get an idea that there's definitely another world around us that has its own laws, its own densities, its own morphology and zoology that you get. So, one of the reasons we're talking is because we were put in touch by Joe Meinhardt, who is in South Africa, and he's got a publisher called Crystal Lake, which is doing very well. It's survived the great extinction of indie publishers over the last few years and is actually rising to one of the top-level publishers. I see great things for them. You were in a book called Where Nightmares Come From. Could you tell us about the book?
Yeah, the book is just all about horror writing. You know, horror writers, you know, writing about horror, writing different aspects of it. You know, it's the kind of book that when I was starting out that I would have killed to have. There were only a few that dealt with, like, writing horror, science fiction, and fantasy. And my particular contribution is an essay about how to use the idea of consciousness itself to help you write better. That all stories are experienced by the consciousness of your character. And if you can think about the ways that we as humans, you know, experience the world through our consciousness, it can help you figure out how to filter the story through the consciousness of your character. It can give you an idea of what to pay attention to in terms of the surrounding environment because of what your character would. It can help you figure out things in terms of plot and things like that. So that was the motif I used to kind of explore different ways of using that to help you write.
And that is from Where Nightmares Come From, the art of storytelling in the horror genre. And who else is in that, do you know?
A lot of people. I think Jack Ketchum, Clive Barker. I think Jonathan Mayberry is interviewed in it. Just an absolute ton of people. It's like a who's who of everybody who's, you know, writing horror today, pretty much. So what's great about that is you get like so many different perspectives from so many different writers, which I think is one of the best ways to learn. You know, I think it's, you know, as a teacher, even though it's nice when students follow me from one class to the other, you know, I always tell them, you know, take a class from somebody else. Learn from as many different people as you possibly can.
Right, and we will have links up where you can find that book at the website at www.whatareyoufraidofpodcast.com for all of our fledgling horror authors who want to get wisdom from the best, the brightest, and the hardcore authors of the horror genre today.
Your source for everything paranormal. Para-X.
What happens to a ghost when their home is torn down? No one thinks of the disembodied when they rip down old buildings, dig up cemeteries, and build clean, unhauntable condos. Every year, hundreds of spirits are driven out of their own haunts by the careless living to exist alone with no one to scare. At Para-X Radio, our hosts feel the plight of these evicted disembodied, and we're reaching out to you to please open your heart to one of these lost souls, such as the ghost soldier of the General Wayne Inn or the abandoned spirit cat of Benjamin Rush. So please, please, let a little spooky into your life. Won't you open your house to a ghost without a home?
Para-X.
My name is Greg Bakken. I'm a writer, a producer, and a paranormal investigator. My favorite way of communicating with spirits is through using the spirit box, also known as a ghost box. I invite you to listen to me every Wednesday at 10 p.m. Central for interviews with people in the paranormal community and beyond. Plus, I will also include as much of my spirit box evidence as I can during my show.
My name is Greg. Can you say Greg? Can you say Jeff? Greg. Jeff.
Join me every Wednesday at 10 p.m. Central Time for Minnesota Ghost Box, only on Para-X Radio.
Your source for everything paranormal. Para-X.
We're back. Yes, here we are. T. Fox Dunham.
Phil Thomas.
And Doug Stafford.
Yes. We are doing kind of two shows tonight. We've got the Parax show with the content, and you can jump over. We just played a great little second-part interview with Tim Waggoner, and if you missed it, you can check out them at 9 o'clock tonight on Parax Radio, or you can download our show at www.whatareyouafraidofpodcast.com. So we've had, again, always plagued with technical issues. Do you remember when we were in Gettysburg?
Yeah.
I was going nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, you were having a nervous breakdown.
I was going nuts because it just was not working, and their internet completely failed. And then so I got everything together. It was going to go great at Penhurst, remember?
Yeah.
We got to Penhurst. Everything was fine. I had all that equipment set up, all the wiring. Took me 3 hours. We log in and find out their stream was crap.
Didn't work.
Could not even log in live on Parax. And you know what? I threw my hat off. I had makeup all over my face, which I'm not doing again. And I said, screw it. We're recording.
No. I think they want to see makeup on your face. That would be great.
They did, yeah.
We wanted them to, but it wasn't working, so we couldn't.
We did the recording video. We put it up later. And you know what? People, it's a streaming thing. I mean, live is fun.
We blamed it on the ghosts, though.
Yeah.
Because...
And the Wendigos?
Both places were haunted, so...
Right.
You know.
But this is episode 68. Wendigo.
Phil,
you've heard of a Wendigo, right?
I have.
Okay, where did we heard of Wendigo at?
Yes. Well, I saw a movie, basically,
Okay.
15 years ago.
I remember this movie.
I've heard of folklore before it, but that's really the first time I ever actually really got a chance to watch or, learn a little bit about it.
Okay.
And the movie, it was interesting. This is Blockbuster era,
Right, okay.
You go in, you see it on the shelf,
Mm-hmm.
and that's pretty much my first real exposure, I'd say, to Wendigo, and it was this beast. The movie, the plot was this beast was in the woods,
Mm-hmm.
and the people that were, if you ate another person, there was resorted to cannibalism.
Was this ravenous?
Resorted to cannibalism, like you would get infected by this.
It was ravenous.
Yes.
Yeah, with
and that
Jeffrey Jones.
Satiable appetite. Where you can eat as many people as you want, this Wendigo can, and
right, and
never be full.
eating. Yeah.
And that's pretty much
very classic Wendigos. There was another movie where some teenagers were being chased by a Wendigo monster, and they didn't have a very good budget for special effects, so the entire time the Wendigo was like a rubber tree that was using itself as a drum. It was not.
Was that like a budget? It was like
I don't know.
Was that within their budget or something?
A B movie level Wendigo.
It was
like one of those.
It really was.
It's a Halloween adventure Wendigo. Yeah.
Mine was actually comic books of all the places where we are. There's actually a villain in the Marvel series called the Wendigo.
Yeah, there is. There absolutely is. Right. It's a very popular concept, and we're going to talk about it tonight as part of our winter stories, which I really love.
Yes.
Our winter stuff. We got some notes in front of us to make sure. I mean, I've always loved the story of the Wendigo. I first encountered it reading Pet Sematary.
Okay.
Do you remember the monster guarding the unclean soil, the soured ground, was a Wendigo.
Okay.
And it was in the hills, in the woods, and it was hunting the one guy down. It was very scary. Like, I'm reading this book terrified as he's going through these Ted forests and climbing down this hillside, and he's taking his dead son to be buried in the soured ground, remember?
Yeah.
And the Wendigo was hunting him.
Wow.
But, so in Algonquin folklore, the Wendigo is a mythical cannibal monster. It's an evil spirit.
Mm-hmm.
It's native to this area, Atlantic coast, Great Lakes region, like up in Canada, and it's part of a traditional belief system of a number of Algonquin-speaking peoples.
Mm-hmm. The Wendigo is a malevolent, cannibalistic, supernatural being. They were strongly associated with the winter, the north, and coldness, as well as famine and starvation. The Wendigo is seen as the embodiment of gluttony, greed, and excess. Never satisfied after killing and consuming one person, they are constantly searching for new victims.
Donner Party of 5?
Donner Party.
First thing that comes to my mind.
5. Yeah, the Donner Party is the big. It really carried on the Indigo or Wendigo. Yeah, the Wendigo girls.
Right.
It's the Wendigo girls. They're actually very evil and.
And they all sound like Chewbacca.
And they do. Yeah, and it's a guitar duo, and it's the Wendigo. But the Inuit Indians, Native Americans, the region called the creature by various names, right? So you got the Wendigo, you got the Wittigo, you got the Wheatigo, and the Weetago.
Oh.
Oh. Yeah, but fire trucks going by. Was that Santa?
I think it might have been.
Ah, crap.
I think it was Santa.
We're missing Santa. Oh, God, the Wendigo got Santa. Santa, no!
Santa.
Well, at least the blood matches the color of the clothing.
Right.
I think you're seeing that wrong. His blood is
Look at this.
red.
Oh, my God. There goes Santa. Santa.
It's green.
And T. Fox is waving at Santa like an innocent child.
It's Santa.
No one believes in the innocence. But Wendigos. We were
Wendigo,
talking.
right. Translated, the evil spirit that devours mankind. Around 1860, a German explorer, he translated Wendigo to mean cannibal among the tribes along the Great Lakes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and it's crazy because some versions of this Native American legend say that it was transformed into this wild creature through dark magic and ritual. Ooh,
right.
Go figure.
Right, exactly. It's like,
yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of different origin stories for the Wendigo. And
and even others say that it's a natural spirit.
Okay.
Part of the hunger in nature, that kind of drives all of this.
Right.
And there's other legends out there also that say that a human becomes a Wendigo or is possessed when they resort to cannibalism.
Right. That seems to be the thing. It's cannibalism.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of legends, but I think they all kind of center around that one thing.
The cannibalism.
Which does make it distinctly different from some of the legends revolving around the concept of being a werewolf or those conditions.
Right.
I agree. Well, many believe this creature. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you done, Phil?
No.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just pausing.
Right. Dramatic.
So the practice of eating a person in desperate situations was common during the rough days of early America. With heavy snows, weather, or just becoming isolated in the wilderness. Mm-hmm. So, are these creatures real, or just a warning about the taboo of cannibalism?
Okay. Right. Okay. So, but many believe this creature, was an invention. If you look at it with folklore and legends. You never quite know where it started, especially with word of mouth. They think it was 19 Horrors author Algernon Blackwood. Do you know Algernon Blackwood?
That would require me to be a literary buff.
You Phil, see, this is amazing.
You know what? I know a lot about literature, but I don't.
This guy is one of the four authors of modern horror. Hold on. The Wendigo, though many legends and stories have been told over the centuries before European settlers to the country, it sort of accounts for people going missing in the forests of Minnesota and Canada. Blackwood's work has influenced characters like Stephen King's novel Pet Sematary, but he wrote this long story that's free.
Right.
It's open source, and we're going to put a link up to that on the website about the original Wendigo.
Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, that's pretty interesting. Right. Yeah, so Basil Johnson, an teacher and scholar, Ojibwa teacher and scholar from Ontario, gives a description of a Wendigo. He says that the Wendigo was gaunt to the point of emaciation. Its desiccant skin pulled tightly over its bones, with its bones pushing out against its skin, its complexion the ash gray of death, and its eyes pushed back deep into their sockets. The Wendigo looked like a gaunt skeleton, recently disinterred from the grave. What lips it had were tattered and bloody, unclean and suffering from suppurations to the flesh, and Wendigo gave off a strange and eerie odor of decay and decomposition, of death and corruption.
Well, that's pretty
heavy stuff, man.
Yeah,
that's very, very heavy stuff.
Right.
But of course, with a lot of things, when we hear stories and things, the descriptions might vary. But of course, there's certain repeating themes, certain commonalities. The idea that this is a monstrous creature in terms of size. This isn't something that's 7 foot tall. This is something that's 15 feet tall.
Right.
And of course, a lot of the more lupine characteristics, such as glowing eyes, yellow fangs, hissing. And for all of us who've been watching too much anime, overly long tongues.
Right. Overly. Okay.
Is that anime or something else you're watching? I'm not sure.
Oh, here we go again.
It's Japan. Of course, there are other features too. Sallow or yellow skin with fur, tall, lanky, and as we've already discussed, wanting to be hungry all the time.
Right.
Whenever a Wendigo would eat another person, it would grow in proportion to the meal it had eaten, so that it could never be full. Therefore, we have this common theme of always being not only gluttonous, but also being emaciated from starvation as well.
Right, okay.
And that makes sense.
That's that's a pretty freaky monster, a mutation of nature.
Yeah. Yeah, and even from the 1800s to the 1900s, Wendigos, could be sighted all over the Northwest. It is also possible that these sightings were mixed in with sightings of Bigfoot bugs. Also common in the region. Or the creatures would be seen in a banshee context, appearing in a town or village before death occurred. Now, this happened often in the town of Rossasoo in northern Minnesota. Yeah. Allegedly.
Okay.
Of course. Now, like a lot of things that happen with these sort of creatures and these sort of stories, there are hunts, just like in Salem with the witch trials, in the 1900s with all these stories, Wendigos were still being hunted. And Oaji Cree chief and medicine man was actually known for his quote-unquote powers at defeating Wendigos. His name was Jack Fiddler.
Okay.
Now, his claim was that he was killing 14 Wendigos, which is an impressive number. However, just like with Salem, what he was actually killing were people that he would claim were possessed by Wendigos. Now, at the age of 87 in 1907, he was actually put away with his son for the murder of a Cree woman. Now, of course, they claimed that they were protecting other members of their tribe before she transformed and started, eating them with the sharp, pointy teeth.
Okay, right.
Ultimately...
Here we go again.
Yes, Tim?
No. You guys are messing it all up.
The Facebook stream already saw this.
Oh, yeah.
They claim they were protecting members of the tribe before she transformed and started eating them. However, ultimately he committed suicide and was tried and sentenced. His son was. He ultimately got a pardon, but died 3 days later before receiving said news of his pardon.
Right.
So where to go.
So how does this happen? I mean, it's like you knock on the tribal door.
Right.
Knock, knock, knock. Wendigo. Wendigo colors. Have you been possessed? Have you been possessed today by a Wendigo?
Have you been possessed by a
How do you
Wendigo,
figure that?
sir?
What's the indication? I mean, what's that in your refrigerator? Look, a human torso. Wendigo!
Wendigo.
You shall die.
That's right.
Right.
So, in northern Ontario, there's a place called the Cave of the Wendigo.
Okay.
Around the town of Kenora. There, the creature has been spotted by traders and trappers for many years.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So, the concept as metaphor, like basically, a lot of the stuff does come down to being metaphysical, being concepts in human culture that are personified as monsters. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like, in addition to denoting the cannibalistic monster from traditional folklore, Native Americans also understand the Wendigo conceptually. And this is a very important idea in themes and concepts. The Wendigo can apply to any person, idea, or movement infected by a corrosive drive towards self-aggrandizing greed and excessive consumption. Sounds like any European cultures who invaded the American continent, at the time?
Just a bit.
The bloody French. That's who it was. That's who it was. It wasn't English at all. But no, and so it shows what happens.
We just lost all our French listeners.
No,
I'm kidding. They're gone.
Great. There's
I'm
Tom.
joking.
Yeah, but they sow disharmony if left unchecked. And the Ojibwe scholar, Brady DeSanto, asserts that the Wendigo can be understood as a marker indicating a person or of humanity or spiritual beings around them who eternally reap and rape the land, basically.
Right.
They throw things out of equilibrium. They're estranged by their community. And individuals afflicted by the Wendigo spirit unravel and destroy the environmental balance around them.
Wow.
So this is kind of a warning, to people. Don't be a Wendigo. It's not just about consuming people. It's about consuming the world around you and throwing... God darn it.
That concept of gluttony being taken and just expressed all around.
Right.
Though, going back there, I mean, we have the spirituality of that if you want to go that route and the idea of it. But there's also the fact we can also tie that into, say, psychology. The idea of psychology being bound to a person, place, or thing, a time. So, it could be, for instance, it may not be a creature of legend, but it could also be a psychological condition, which is actually, some people have actually called Wendigo psychosis.
Yeah, Wendigo psychosis.
It has been reported that humans have become possessed by the Wendigo spirit after being in a situation of needing food and having no other choice besides cannibalism. Donner Party of 5.
Donner Party of 5.
Donner Party of 5.
Right. I can just think of the creosote man asking for a wafer thin mint.
A wafer thin mint.
For instance,
wafer thin.
Exactly. For instance, in 1661, the Jesuit Relations reported that those poor men, according to the report given us, were seized with an ailment unknown to us, but very unusual among the people we were seeking.
Right.
They are afflicted with neither lunacy, hypochondria, nor frenzy, but have a combination of all these species of disease which affects their imagination and causes them of a more than canine hunger.
Right.
This makes them ravenous for human flesh, that they pounce upon women, children,
Yes.
and even upon random men walking by.
And magicians.
Hi, I'm the magician. Like veritable werewolves, and devour them voraciously, without being able to appease or glut their appetite, ever seeking fresh prey, and the more greedily, the more they eat.
Wow,
Right.
jeez.
Okay, one of the most famous cases of the Wendigo psychosis reported around involved Plains Cree trapper from Alberta. His name was Swift Runner, right? During the winter of 1878, Swift Runner and his family were starving. This is usually how the story starts out. And his eldest son died. 25 miles away from emergency food supplies at the Hudson Bay Company Post. He still died even though the food was there. And Swift Runner ate his wife, 5 remaining children. And given the fact that he resorted to this cannibalism, even though food was there, that he killed and consumed his family especially. That's an important part of the story, is that you prey upon the ones you love. You know? It was revealed that Swift Runner's was not a case of pure cannibalism as a last resort to avoid starvation, but rather of a man with Wendigo psychosis. And he eventually confessed and was executed by the authorities in Fort Saskatchewan.
Right.
Okay.
So, yeah, among the Assabwan and Cree and the Ojibwe, satirical ceremonial dance is sometimes performed during times of famine to reinforce the seriousness of the Wendigo taboo. The last known Wendigo ceremony conducted in the United States was at Lake Wendigo of Star Island of Cass Lake, located within the Leech Lake Indian Reservation of northern Minnesota.
Okay. Well, so
that was a mouthful right there.
Yeah, it's all a mouthful. But that's basically our sources for that were American Lore Net at Folklore and PrairieGhost.com and Wikipedia.
Right.
And that was the Wendigo. And tonight, I took the original legend, one of the famous legends, rewrote it a bit because, you know, that's what you need to do when you do this stuff. And I recorded it for you, you know, on the show. And this is the original Wendigo legend. We've been rewritten by T. Fox Dunham. I read it earlier today, set it to a little tribal music, and we will play that for you now on What Are You Afraid Of? Horror and Paranormal Show on ParaX Radio at 9 o'clock on Friday nights, and sometimes 6 live. Plus we got our Facebook thing going on here where we're just kind of hanging out and talking, and you can hear the story over at ParaX Radio. Check it out when we do the replay, and hopefully we'll have our technical issues so we can play this stuff over the Facebook thing live too. We're still kind of working on it. But I'm T. Fox Dunham.
I'm Phil Thomas.
And I'm Doug Stafford.
And we are live at Comic Zen, if you hear noises in the background, for the tree lighting ceremony tonight in Lansdale, PA. That's a lot of fun. Wendigo. Taken from a ghost story of the Northwest Territories of the Ojibwa First Nation. Rewritten and read by T. Fox Dunham. A wicked storm had blown up over the mountains and into the valley where the brave warrior and his family made their home in Weak Hut. The storm blew so hard that the brave couldn't see feet from the tent. He couldn't hunt or fish for days, and they had little wood left for fuel. The warrior watched the sky while his children hungered, and finally the winds died and snow eased, yet another storm blew fast from the west over the stone peaks. Game must be found soon, or his family would starve or freeze. With his knife and spear at hand, the warrior stalked the known game trail and searched for animal scat or tracks on the fresh blanket of white snow. Deer or small game would also be using the clear weather to venture out and search for food, and he hoped he would find luck along the frozen stream for a thirsty deer. The ice had petrified the forest, coating the trees and bushes in a layer of clear crystal. Only the sound of the wind sung through the icy woods. Most of the wood creatures slept in their burrows, safe from the weather. However, the warrior had to keep hunting, searching, perhaps finding fish frozen in the ice of the stream. His family would starve if he didn't. As he moved along the stream, poking the ice with his spear, a creature hissed behind him. He turned to find the creature, and it hissed behind his back again. As he turned searching, the entire forest seemed to be hissing. He began to pant, holding out his spear. His heart beat fast in his ears. He spotted blood along the stream and beheld a wet and red footprint and another leading ahead. He heard the stories of hunters vanishing into the forest during winter storms, of the terrible hunger that never stopped. From in the dark, cavernous woods, he knew the beast to be watching him. Wendigo. A creature taller than a tree, jagged teeth biting from its lipless mouth. When it breathed, it hissed and bled where it walked. Antlers as tall as any deer grew from its head, and it stank of rotting meat, of all the meat it had eaten. It ate all creatures who ventured unknowingly into its territory, a force of hunger, like nature, like the constant wind. Sometimes the ravenous spirit would not eat you, but take possession of your body, turning you into a Wendigo like it. Then he dreaded the fate of his family, for they would be the first to be hunted and devoured. The warrior raised his spear. According to the stories he'd learned as a boy from his father, he would have one chance to defeat the horrible spirit. Then he would die. If he failed, he'd either be eaten or driven to eat those he loved. He could not let that happen. He backed away from the bloody prince. The creature hissed all around him, and he listened with trained ears, seeking the source of the sound. From the left, perhaps, it stank of carrion. He readied his knife and the spear for the fight. The Wendigo burst from the snow, a giant mass of a creature, and fell upon the warrior. He dove to the side and rolled about in the snow, taking the ice as camouflage in the twilight and winter world. The Wendigo turned its great bulk to attack, and the warrior lobbed his spear, hitting the creature's chest. The beast batted the spear away without wound. The warrior hid behind a frozen oak while the creature ripped apart the snow, seeking him. He waited for his moment. Then when the creature turned its awesome frame, the warrior attacked, stabbing its black eye with his knife. The beast howled in agony, and the warrior pushed the knife deeper, making the most of his successful hit. The beast tried to throw him off, but the warrior kept up the attack, digging deep with his knife. Finally the Wendigo collapsed to the ground, shedding its blood, now dead. The warrior freed himself from the body. The creature's fur blended into the white and grew snow, and as he watched, the body turned to mist and wind, leaving only a pool of blood. The blood pool attracted a hungry fox, and the warrior quickly hunted the animal. It would provide enough food for his family until he could hunt again. The forest had rewarded him for purging the spoiled spirit.
You're listening to the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network. Yeah, it's a mouthful. For more great shows, visit electronicmediacollective.com.
Caliburn Press, LLC is a Madison, Wisconsin-based publishing company owned and operated by Alan Ledden. Caliburn works with talented writers, artists, editors, and marketers throughout the United States, and you can find their books through their many imprints that include Damnation Books, Eternal Press, Malaferia Press, Ciento Sordida Publishing, and Spiro Publishing. Please visit their website at sites.google.com/site/Caliburn Press LLC/home, or Google Caliburn Press to check out their growing list of titles on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and any other place fine books are sold.
Are you haunted by shadow people in the middle of the night?
Do you secretly love all things creepy and spooky, enjoying ghost stories and horror fiction from the best storytellers?
Do you have a true ghost experience you want to share, but no one will believe you?
If yes, listen to the professionals on What Are You Afraid Of? Horror Paranormal Show, Friday nights at 9 p.m. on Para X Radio and at www.whatareyouafraidofpodcast.com.
What Are You Afraid Of on Para X?
Our creepy and demented hosts are on call to provide you with all your spooky needs with true ghost stories, interviews, indie music, and new horror fiction. We are ready to scare you.
Para X.
Hey, we're back.
We're back, yay.
Yeah, yay. We're back. Woo. So that was a fun story I did. Like I said, it's very classic. Native American brave is trying to feed his family, again, themes of hunger. Major snow, can't go out and get food, they're going to starve. Then he goes out, encounters a Wendigo, kills it, otherwise it's going to turn him into a cannibal zombie and send him back into his family.
Right. Instead, he eats the meat.
So in that case, it's a story of survival against nature.
Okay.
You know, especially every warrior's worry that they won't be able to feed their family.
Right.
You know. But that was fun.
It makes you think, like, you know, if something like that happened to any one of us nowadays, you know, would we be able to survive it? Something, you know, harsh temperatures, atmosphere. I mean, how would we, you know?
We
really, how would we survive?
So it's a horror story.
We probably wouldn't. This is probably what would happen.
Essentially, it's a horror story.
Mm-hmm.
So we're at What Are You Afraid of? Horror Paranormal Show. We are live tonight from Comic Zen again. We're back at Comic Zen. Good old Tim Hershey has welcomed us back to Comic Zen, and we're really happy to be here. We love coming out here.
Yes.
He's wonderful to have us. We have a lot of fun out here, and we'll be back, I'm sure.
It's officially December.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's freaking me out.
But it was a quiet Black Friday, though.
Okay, yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, you would get trampled to death.
We have the internet now.
Yeah, we do, and the internet's killing.
Yeah.
It's just killing
That's
all
the
the...
difference. If you wanted to go out and get them deals, you had no choice but to get up off the sofa and actually get your car and drive to the store. Nowadays, you can just sit in front of your laptop or your desktop, whatever, and click buy it on Amazon or wherever,
And that's kind of scary in itself.
Right.
Because what happens when we run out of fossil fuels?
Right. Yeah.
What happens when we can no longer deliver? It all started with the Sears catalog, and the Sears catalog allowed you to put things on trains and deliver to the Old West. So that was the first real mail order. That was the first real internet.
Right.
And so you could get a sewing machine or grain or stuff for your store, and Sears really took off that way. But what happens when we no longer have the fuel to ship these things to your home? Which is going to happen. I mean, it's going to get more and more expensive. It's all about fuel costs.
Let's raise that up for a moment, if you don't mind, because I mean, not even necessarily with fossil fuels, but even with the thing that you're listening to this on. You might be listening to this on a smartphone. You might be listening to this on a laptop or a tablet. Those all use the same kind of batteries, and just like fossil fuels, there's actually a very limited resource of lithium. And the moment that's gone, then the equivalent of what powers your laptop would be the equivalent of like a 4-pound brick of lead.
Oh God,
Yeah.
It's not.
So you can have all this massive industrial waste that's doing nothing.
Exactly.
That's kind of scary. We're talking, what are you afraid of? That's the future. Unless we can find these energy alternative technologies, which is possible, but they're not going to really come into vogue until the oil companies are no longer making so much money. And hopefully, as the economy will sort this out.
Or individuals like our listeners start all standing up and choosing to buy alternatives. I mean, Tesla has just released their first in-house battery system to store efficient solar power for economic price.
Okay, see, efficiency. And I love the solar-powered windows. They're also generating power while warming your home.
My neighbor did a solar-powered roof.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, a whole solar-powered roof.
See, the problem is making it economical. I mean, the money you spend on your roof, you're not going to get that back for years.
Yeah, I know, and he knows that.
If you go to a place like things I'm about to say about myself. If you go to an event like Burning Man or something a little closer to you, which for us here is an event called the Playa de Fuego, what they'll do there is they'll actually create a solar power installation there. Well, they'll have about 50 devices set up so you can actually just plug in and charge as you go. So it's completely doable.
Okay. Yeah, just a warning for Facebook. It dropped our video.
Dun, dun, dun.
Facebook's having so many problems tonight. I'm redoing it, but we lost over. That's okay. We'll get it worked out. We're on Parax Radio right now, and I want to pause because I want to play the promo for Comic Zen to remind people that Tim Hershey is a great guy. It's a great store. Come on down to Lansdale, check it out. Come out and buy some stuff here for Christmas at Comic Zen.
Hi, this is Tim from Comic Zen. We're located at 301A West Main Street in Lansdale, right near the intersection with Susquehanna Avenue. We have new comics, old comics, graphic novels, including comics made just for kids. Action figures, statues, comic supplies, board games, card games, and much more. We have a special order service for both comics and games, and we have a comic subscription service so you don't miss your monthly issues. So come to Comic Zen. Just don't upset the samurai ghost who haunts the store.
And guess what, kiddies? Foxy and Philly will be recording live from Comic Zen in Lansdale every first Friday of the month. So come down and see us at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, not then, because we will be recording live for the Philly Foxy Haunted Spooky Hour on Parax Radio. And bring your ghost stories a little before or a little after, and we'll be glad to collect them at Comic Zen. First Fridays at Comic Zen. Comic Zen.
In Lansdale, PA. We're back.
We are back.
Thank you, Tim Hershey at Comic Zen. I'm T. Fox Dunham.
I'm Phil Thomas.
And I'm Doug Stafford.
And we've been trying to get you on for a while now, Doug.
You've been trying to get me on for the last, year.
Yeah.
I met you guys last year while you guys were doing your Halloween broadcast.
Yeah, you came up to crush it, yeah.
It was the most awkward date night possible.
I remember. Yeah, you had a young lady with you, if I recall.
I did.
Yeah, so how did that go?
Okay. Well, when you chose to be Polly, well, that's all of the above, and you don't always get all of the above.
Oh, I see. So you want more but less of the above. Okay, so...
Yes, I liked one strong opinion so much, I went and got more.
Alright, correct, yeah. You're a funeral buddy. So, yeah, so we got... Any good horror Christmas movies you got? Of course, there's Gremlins.
Oh, yeah.
Polar Express.
Not
Polar. No, Santa Express. Santa Express.
Santa Express.
Yes, Santa Express. It's actually...
Is that a horror movie?
Yes, it is. It is, I want to say, a Danish?
Okay.
It's a foreign movie, and the premise is actually Krampus.
Okay.
And it's about a horror movie for the first, I'd say, 75% of it. About a bunch of people living in the wilderness of the Netherlands dealing with encountering an ancient being that they identify as Krampus. And the last 25% is about a really whacked out comedy about what they do with the cleanup.
Nice.
Well, if you remember, last year we had Katie Montana Jordan on.
Yeah.
You can find that episode at www.whateverafraidofpodcast.com, and she meets, interviews, and falls in love with the Krampus.
That's right. And this year she's getting married.
She's getting married. Apparently they're getting married. We're gonna have it live on the show.
No, but my favorite Christmas horror movie, I would say, and Gremlins is comedy, so I'm putting it in that same Christmas horror.
Gremlins 2 is comedy.
Gremlins 2 is comedy.
Oh, yeah.
Gremlins is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Right.
But Christmas horror, Black Christmas, the original Black Christmas.
Oh, agreed.
The 1970s version is absolutely amazing. And of course, if you want a stupid Christmas horror movie, you also have Silent Night, Deadly Night, which is, and all the sequels.
True, but that goes into the themed territory of repetitive movies,
Oh yeah, it's like basically Friday the 13th for Christmas.
Right.
The formula just gets repeated, every movie,
Right, but of course you've got The Nightmare Before Christmas.
That's great.
Which I think I think it's more of a
That's-
Christmas movie than a Halloween movie.
Yeah, that's not a horror movie, not even a Halloween
But
movie.
still, it's fun and dark.
Right.
And I will always I'm sorry, go ahead, Doug.
No.
I will always associate Christmas and the holidays with the Addams Family movies.
Okay.
Raul Julia,
Love them.
played Gomez. It came out at Christmas time. I saw it when I was really young. We saw it in the theaters. And they open up with carolers who are singing Deck the Halls with Bells. And then as they're singing La 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 La, it goes up, it pans up, you hear the dun-dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun-dun, and then you look up and the Addams are up on the roof and they're pouring a boiling pot of oil onto the carolers below.
Can I share something?
Yes, absolutely.
So in my adventures, I get to meet a lot of interesting people, and I actually got to meet the actor who plays the Thing.
Oh, really?
Yes.
How did you know?
Yes.
Did
I actually have a photo with that hand on top of my head. His hand is huge.
There's Tim Hershey.
It is not.
It's a figure. His name is Christopher Hart. He's actually a stage magician.
He's a stage because he did a lot of hand tricks.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
He was actually done mostly on his hands and knees, watching into monitors, looking at the position of his hand the entire time. He actually describes it as one of the most difficult gigs he's ever done. However, he still gets booked to do the hand.
Well, okay. For our Para-X audience, we got to sign off now.
Right.
Okay.
This is the episode 68, Wendigo, talking about that winter ghost legend. And thank you, Para-X Radio, for tuning in. We'll be back at 9 o'clock tonight with the repeat of this. Yeah. And we'll be on 9 o'clock nights on Para-X Radio, and we're also over the EMC Podcast Network. Friday nights, What Are You Afraid of? Horror and Paranormal Show, www.whatareyouafraidofpodcast.com. And wishing everyone a great week, and thank you for tuning in. I'm T. Fox Dunham.
I'm Phil Thomas.
And I'm Doug Stafford.
Nice.
Fox Dunham lives in Philadelphia with his wife Allison. He's a lymphoma survivor, cancer patient, modern art and historian. His first book, The Street Martyr, was published by Gutter Book, a major motion picture based on the book is being produced by Throughline Films. Destroying the Tangible Illusion of Reality or Searching for Andy Kaufman, a book about what it's like to be dying of cancer, was recently released from Perpetual Motion Machine Publishing. And Fox has a story in the Stargate anthology, Points of Origin, from MGM and Fandemonium Books. Mercy was recently released by Bloodbound Books. Fox is an active member of the Heartbreak Association. He's been published in hundreds of short stories and articles, and his motto is Wrecking Civilization, one story at a time.
Phil Thomas resides in the suburbs of Philadelphia and is an author and filmmaker. His screenplays have been produced into feature films such as False Face and Always from Darkness that are available in major retailers such as Best Buy and Target, as well as availability on Netflix and Amazon On Demand.
The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.